is 6th grade at least, usually junior high. And at 7,500 words, this is not a YA either. This is maybe a short story. So I'm actually very confused about where this is supposed to fit.
I mean, it was interesting to hear the response from you when you saw the dense text on that and the complexity of it all, and 7,500 words, it just doesn't fit.
I mean, just the first sentence, I was overwhelmed by the density of the identical looking words on the page, really. But yeah, this is not a chapter book. This is also not a subject for a chapter book. Your protagonist needs to be about a decade younger, I think, than, I don't know how old your character, what this feels like.
In a chapter book, your protagonist shouldn't be older than like 9.
Yes. And even the title, I mean, Homecoming, Give It to Pig is a far better title for a chapter book. And yeah,
it's not working.
Yeah.
However, if this is intended for an older audience, that 7,500 words should be more like 75,000 words. And if this is a YA, if this is intended for a teen audience, I would still suggest, number one, the paragraph breaks. You need paragraph breaks, or at least tabbing, so that you can see where the paragraph breaks are, because basic formatting would help. I would just not read this if I got it in this format, because it's impossible to read like this.
And I think that first impression is really important too. I mean, your heart drops with something like this and you think, am I going to spend time on it or just go on to something else?
This actually reads like a, I mean, I kind of skimmed further down. It actually reads like an adult novel to me, not even, I mean, adult story to me, not even young adult. Because
it's a nostalgic voice.
Yeah. And the kind of issues being talked about are quite grown up. Two things pink. There's way too many books with pink. Drop it. The vocabulary is some of it is too grown up for a picture book, expecting perfection. Especially that phrase. And yeah, I mean, it's okay. I'm not wildly enthusiastic about it. I think all picture book manuscripts get read because they're really short. So yes, I would be on. But a lot of this would actually be done through the pictures. I imagine it can actually be edited out.
For me, this is not a unique voice or unique situation. It's a thing that you see time and time again with the little girl, centre of their own will, demanding things to her own satisfaction. It's not unique enough for me, apart from me.
I'm not a picture book publisher. I do middle grade and YA, so this is just purely a reaction as a reader. Didn't really grab me.
Okay, move on to the next submission, a picture book, 800 or 900 words here. Spidey's Web. I wish I were not a spider, said little Spidey. I can't even spin a web properly. She had spent hours making silk thread and weaving it into a web, but she'd fallen 7 times and got stuck in her own web twice.
Yeah, for a first page of a picture book, it needs to be shorter. I did like the repetition. I can't play now. That's a really nice repetition. Repetition in picture books is quite nice when it's done with a good rhythm and for a good reason.
Just as I'm allergic to pink, I'm a bit allergic to talking animals as well. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they can't talk ever, but it's been done to death. I mean, not done to a coma. So if you're having talking animals, then I think there should be, kind of more to it. But
if you're going to be writing a rhyming picture book, the rhythm has to be perfect, absolutely flawless, and this is not, because you're writing something that parents will have to read over and over and over again. So I would recommend not writing rhyming unless you can make it perfect. And it, could be refined, but
This is being driven by the need to rhyme rather than to make sense. The narrative just doesn't make sense. It's not natural language here.
I'd say the same thing in terms of if you're writing in verse, it needs it needs to be a story you can't tell in prose. So in that sense, it's sometimes nice to be driven by where rhyme is driving you, but then it needs to get wilder and wackier. I like monsters, I like things under the bed, so I would read more. But again, this is not an unusual subject, so there needs to be something fairly compelling fairly soon to make me want to read on very much further.
This is actually a little bit more compelling to me than the last rhyming one. The fact that it's probably it scans. Even to a first reader, reading aloud, it feels a little bit more like the rhythm is right. Though it's often a few lines and probably could be refined, but this is much closer to that kind of. And I also like the idea of what is probably a little girl pirate.
I like the little girl pirate, I definitely read more, but why does she have to become a princess?
I just don't, this one doesn't appeal to me at all. I just don't feel it's unique for me. Yeah. And it's still, at almost 900 words, it's very long.
Okay, the next picture book, 200 and something words. Okay.
It doesn't feel like something for children.
I think it's totally too complex in ideas, and I think this would be a terrible challenge from an illustrator. And I would never read this in a story time with kids, I'm sorry.
It's too apt. Very good that it's 237 words. That is great if you can write a story in there, but this doesn't really have a story. It's too abstract, it's too grown up, the characters.
Even a picture book needs an arc, a plot, characters, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Then we're going to move to the screen for the remaining, I think it's 4 submissions. So if you want to turn on that screen.
I really like the world building in this first page.
Yeah, I think I'd certainly want to see more than this. I think it set up something a wee bit different, and just see how it was expanded.
I really like this. I would definitely read more. I love that comparison of the earth to the grandmother's eye. I think it's just such a gripping beginning. And yeah, it's lovely. But I agree that it sounds slightly older, but of course might change.
Weave. I can't wait for sunset. Coco jumped up and down, clapping her hands. I'm visiting my grandpa, traveling through the bush all by myself. Mother, what can I take for Grandpa? Coco said. It must be something special, very, very special. Mother suggested gum leaves. Gum leaves were the only gift any koala ever gave another, ever. I wish my first gift to Grandpa was different, fun, exciting, something very special. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Coco smelled something sweet as she passed the little hollow. Possum was eating a round purple treat. That smells different. It can be my special gift for my Grandpa, Coco said. Will you swap that, Possum, for these gum leaves? Possum agreed. That smelt all right.
I just think the language is a bit adult and forced with this.
I like the concept. It seems like it's a concept picture book almost, and if it were pared down to just the idea of, it's almost a Little Red Riding Hood kind of story, but if it were pared down in language, the concepts of Coco trading one thing for another as they go on throughout the story, that is the most important concept here. And I think that if it were boiled down to its concept, it would be a little bit more workable.
Yeah, I like the echoes of Red Riding Hood, and it leaves me fairly cold actually. I agree with you that it's talking animals. It's a bit too wordy, but as you said, if it's pared down a lot, it might.
It just doesn't feel like a picture book manuscript at all. Yeah.
Big questions, small questions, red questions, blue questions feels almost too much like Dr. Seuss, but that part of it is also hitting more on a picture book voice that I would expect to see than the whole rest of it.
Somewhere the idea of a girl whose head is bursting with questions is quite interesting, but it doesn't read like a picture book. might be a chapter book. As you said,
It's too wordy.
It's too wordy. I do like that line, though. Big questions, small. Again, that seems to be
like
picture booky with visual possibilities.
One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. It feels a little bit too
Yeah.
much like that.
But I want to illustrate that.
I don't know, I think you need a whole separate story in the visuals. But
And
again,
I
this
think
is
that
too complex to.
I think that the idea of a girl with lots of
Yeah.
questions is a good concept
It's a
for a
good
picture book, but this particular way of expressing it is not working.
And this writing seems more chapter booky to me, and it actually seems like it could be an interesting chapter book.
Thank you. I kind of feel like with middle grade animal stories, and honestly, talk about allergies, winged people and talking animals are two of my things as well. I used to love talking animals as a kid, so that's not to say that other editors might not love to see talking animals, because kids do love talking animals and they love dinosaurs. However, I actually would say that most kids are past the dinosaur stage by the time they're in middle grade. They're more into dinosaurs and picture book ages. However, specifically when you're thinking about personifying animals, the most successful personification books like Redwall don't make the animals into people. They personify them, but they have animal behavior. So immediately my thought is, why is this dinosaur burying his uncle? Because that feels like a very human behavior.
That disconcerted me immediately. I would want to start with let's go figure. Just getting rid of that first paragraph and getting into the action. And certainly that dinosaur really disconcerted me.
Your dinosaur stories are irredeemably tragic because we know how it all ended. So, little Fugu's got to go soon too. But it's just way too. I don't see why you have to write a dinosaur story if he's going to behave so human.
Why
Yeah.
is the dinosaur
Yeah.
here?
Actually, when I was in Bologna, I had one publisher saying if you're writing about animals, and the animals have to behave within the animal world and not be there as, people.
Okay, thank you very much. We've reached the end of all 18 submissions. I'm now going to give you a pop quiz. I'm going to tell you about
I
this.
actually am not open right now to submissions except for people like you at this conference. So if you go to our website, which is leonlow.com, and then navigate to the two books, it's easier than trying to tell you the entire address. Navigate to the two books in print. There's a link on the side that says submission guidelines, and it says we're currently closed. For you guys, we are actually open. So look there on the website for formatting and all the details as far as that goes. However, I am making an exception also since you're not in the US. You can email me your submission at swhitman, WHITMAN, at leeandlow.com. That's LEEANDLOW. And you have to make sure that you put in the subject line AFCC submission. Otherwise, it will probably get lost in my inbox. So follow the submission guidelines on the website, but you are welcome to email me as long as you say AFCC submission. And I'll have all that details actually in my presentation tomorrow morning. So if you do come to my presentation about the American market, I'll have that in a slide at the end if you missed any details. Specifically, stories that I'm looking for, YA is much more what I'm looking for than middle grade. Middle grade is actually a very tough market in the US right now. And I'm looking for, I have been asking for years for good Asian steampunk. So, steampunk is a perennial genre, but it's often, based in the UK because that's where, the Victorian era was centered. However, as we all know, the Victorian era happened all around the world. And I would love to see Singaporean steampunk or Korean steampunk, or, you know, well, obviously the Victorian era was not like British influence, you know what I mean. So Asian steampunk would be lovely.
Sole agent dealing with New Zealand clients, whether they're based in New Zealand or internationally. I do take unsolicited submissions, but I've got such a pile to read at the moment, I think I'll be closing that for a little while. But it's always hard, you actually don't know what you're looking for till you see it. Something actually comes and puts its hands up and demands that you actually look at it. That's what I want.
I forgot to mention, I am only looking for characters of color. I am not looking for white characters, because that is the mission of my imprint, is to publish characters of color.
I work for a small publishing house called Duckbill. We publish, based out of India, we publish from chapter books to young adult. We publish fairly on whim. So, as Francis said, it has to be something which leaps up and waves at us and says, I'm a fantastic story, publish me. So we have no fixed numbers for how much we're publishing in each of, in chapter books, middle grade or young adult. It just has to be a story we really like.